welcome back. It's nice to see you. We're almost there, by the way. This is us going into the weekend of the first week of the international break. So we're close to the end. I seen somebody commenting on my video yesterday say, the one thing I hate most about the international break is clicking on every video and seeing people complain about the international break. We get it. You don't like it. Trust me. This channel, for as long as I can make this my full-time living, I will continuously bang on about how much I hate the international break. Get used to it if you aren't already. Nah, in all seriousness, we are almost there. We're going into the weekend. And, of course, next weekend, Celtic are back in action. So we've not got too long now to fill that void. Champions League will be back. League action, of course. Domestic action, heading towards a League Cup final in mid-December. We've got a lot to talk about over the next few months. So it's good that we're going to finally be out of this international break. Before we go any further, I would like to address the horrible clash of outfits here. The green Aston Martin shirt with the red Chicago Blackhawks cap. I know, it looks ridiculous. I needed a hat to put on before the stream, and I realised with 1 minute ago the only one I had up here with me was this. So this is what you're getting, and I love that that we've got K Sadia 31 saying hail hail from Chicago. Hey, I tip the hat to you, thank you. Anyway, we're back tonight. We live stream where I'm going to take your questions and give you my answers. There's not a lot of news out there. We've got Lennon Miller to talk about a little bit. Since the last video we done on him, we've had some more developments with that and some more rumours flying and what seems to be a never-ending rumour mill. So we will cover that, but mostly I want to take your questions and give you my answers. And for channel members, you'll be happy to know this isn't the last you'll see of me tonight. If you are a channel member, we'll be live again at 8 o'clock to stream some Football Manager. So if you're a channel member, come along, join us. If you're not a channel member and you want to be part of that stream, then join the 118 Club and you can come and watch me play as Celtic on Football Manager down in the English Premier League. It's nice to see you all. Ross, good to see you. Lubo, Callum, Matthew, Helen, Alan, Scogan, Paul, UTLR, Matthew, Lubo, Mackenzie, Jerry. Nice to see you piling all in. We've got just about 100 live viewers as we currently speak, and we're going to try and cover a few different aspects of what's going on right now at Celtic. Let's just start with the main one. Let's go for the Lennon Miller story and get it done and out the way, shall we? We of course made a video a couple of days ago on the channel concerning Celtic's apparent chase for Lennon Miller and the rumours going around that Motherwell were going to look for a £5.3 million deal in the January window should he leave the club. Now, that also came in the same day where Motherwell's chairman came out and said, listen, we don't want to sell him in January, we won't sell him if we don't need to, and we would like to keep him as long as we possibly can. So Motherwell have made their stance clear. However, of course, there comes a time, there comes a point where clubs need to sell. And especially when you're in Scotland, with all due respect, when you're not Celtic, when you're not Rangers, when you're not one of the big teams. And I mean, I guess this doesn't even apply to Rangers anymore because the financial situation is a bit different. But when you're at Celtic, you know, sometimes you can keep a hold of players, sometimes you don't need money. But if someone comes knocking at the door at Fir Park with £5 million ready to sign Lennon Miller, he'll be off. It's as simple as that. He'll be off. That's what it is. We heard £5.3 million. We've heard other numbers throwing around. There was an exclusive broken by the Daily Mail on the 13th of November, which was Wednesday night. So the same day that I done my video, later on that evening, there was an exclusive broken by John McGarry of the Daily Mail, which reported that Celtic and Rangers are ready to move 14-star Lennon Miller, but Motherwell will hold out for a £4 million fee. So that fee that we heard from the Football Gospel saying £5.3 million has come down a little bit to £4 million, and apparently that will be enough to land the services of Lennon Miller. By the way, before we go any further, thank you to Callum. I appreciate you, mate. Welcome aboard. Thank you for becoming a channel member. You're an absolute legend. Celtic and Rangers are apparently not the only clubs that are looking at the potential signing of Lennon Miller. There was reports that came out from down south that Southampton are also looking at potentially signing Lennon Miller. There's a few other English clubs that have been mentioned in articles. Newcastle apparently have interested. Christ, even Liverpool's name has floated around the name of Lennon Miller. Now, do I see Liverpool signing him? No, but you never know. They signed Ben Doak from us. They obviously have scouts up here, and if they see talent, they'll sign talent. And I tell you one thing, Lennon Miller is incredibly talented. And I think the real battle is going to come between Celtic and Rangers. Whether it's in January or whether it's at the end of the season, I think that's where the real battle will come. Now, what I'll say is, £4 million is only a starting point, I think. I don't think that £4 million will be where the deal is done. I think that it might rise up a little bit more than that, and so it should. I think that we should treat Motherwell with a hell of a lot of respect moving into a potential deal for Lennon Miller. Just like we demand respect when we're dealing with Brighton and when we're dealing with Crystal Palace and Fulham and all these clubs who get linked from the mid-table in England looking at our best players, I think that we should be treating Motherwell with that same respect. I've seen people saying, Motherwell can't demand £5 million. Why not? Why can they not? If we can demand £35 million for our players, why should Motherwell not be allowed to demand £5 million for theirs? And I don't think that should necessarily scare Celtic off from paying the money. Lennon Miller, to me, is a player that Celtic should be signing by any means necessary. I think that he's a vital part of what we could be doing moving forward, both as a mark for what we want to do domestically and in Europe, because I think he's ultimately going to end up one of Scotland's best players over the next decade. And Celtic should be in about that. And realistically, Celtic could and should bury Rangers out of any potential signing of him. Rangers apparently are keen. Rangers are apparently ready to go in with £3.5–4 million to make this happen. Celtic can blow that out the water. Celtic could sign Lennon Miller for £5 million, £6 million, £7 million, and I know we're going to get to the point where you go, well, how much is too much? But as I said, I think it's a by any means necessary you sign Lennon Miller. Now, I'm not saying that Celtic go and spend 12, 13, 14 million pounds on him. There's obviously a point where you do have to draw a realistic line. But Rangers shouldn't and can't compete with Celtic when it comes to the finances and trying to sign him. And if Celtic were to offer 6 or 7 million, I would be more than happy to sign him for 6 and 7 million. If it means getting his contract over the line, if it means getting his signature dotted down on a Celtic contract, I think he is a must sign. Letting him go, I said this in my video the other day, and I'll stand by this and I'll die on the hill. And I'll die on this hill, even if he turns out to be shite. Even if he does sign for Celtic and he's rotten, I will die on this hill. If we don't sign Lennon Miller, it is as negligent as the situation with John McGinn. I said it on Wednesday, and I'll repeat myself until he finally moves, whether it's to Celtic, Rangers, Real Madrid, I don't care where Lennon Miller ends up, Shrewsbury Town. If Celtic don't gamble and sign him and try to make him one of the key players moving forward, and I'm not saying he comes into the first team next year or anything like that, you know, we probably need to utilise loan deals and get him prepared and get him ready for that kind of that transition, but it would be as negligent as not signing John McGinn. When we live in an era of Scottish football where there's not enough Scottish players that are good enough to play for Celtic, you can't let the ones who clearly are good enough to play for Celtic go, or clearly will be good enough to play for Celtic. And I know I see Smelly Gob saying the only problem is I said the likes of Barkas and Haksabanovic would be decent, and they didn't fit that bill. But these are the risks you've got to take. You've got to buy these players. If you don't buy them, you'll never know. And listen, we are arriving at a time where I genuinely think we'll struggle to fill that quota in Scottish football. I think that we'll struggle to get players in the club who are Scottish, who'll tick the boxes. You need to have 4 club-trained players. You need to get 4 nation-trained players. The club-trained player situation is one entirely... take that to the side for a moment. But at least if you have Lennon Miller on board, you have a Scottish player who's good enough to take a spot. Right now, our Scottish players... some of them consist of Stephen Welsh, Anthony Ralston, Scott Bain, 3 players who aren't good enough to play for Celtic, and then James Forrest, who's retiring, Callum McGregor, who's coming into his mid-30s soon. Well, not mid-30s, that's a shame, sorry Callum, but he's entered his 30s, and, we need to start thinking about these sort of things. So, yeah, it's one for me that Celtic have to make happen. Thank you, Jordan, for the donation, saying Rangers can't afford 5 million. Neither can I. So here's a fiver. Thank you. It's close to 5 million, I suppose. I appreciate it, Jordan. Yeah. So listen, Celtic have all the financial power to make it happen. Inside the article that was broken by the Daily Mail, they said that Celtic are admirers, contrary to the reports by Football Gospel. There is no approach being made yet. I think that Celtic will be pushed into an approach come January if I was to hedge my bets. I think that Celtic will like to do a lot of spectating from afar when it comes to this transfer and this potential signing. I don't think they necessarily want to go for it in January. But if the reports start coming out that Rangers have made a move, and if Lennon Miller's agent is on the phone to Celtic saying, by the way, there's been a bid from Ibrox, Celtic will bid. I would put every penny in my bank account on that. So I think in terms of January, it's a if push comes to shove situation for Lennon Miller at Celtic. But ultimately, it's a big move for him. It's a big decision for him. He'll obviously want to prioritise his own career. Right now, he wouldn't be coming to Celtic to be in that first team straight away. So, there's a lot of factors and different things that will obviously make this deal a complicated one on either side of the fence. So, a lot to worry about, a lot to do. We'll see where it goes, but I'm hoping that we sign him. I will be backing Celtic to sign him the whole way. If he comes to Celtic, I'll be backing him the whole way. He is going to be the face of the Ryan 118 propaganda, Lennon Miller. So, I warn you of that right now. So, anyway, that's that. So shall we get into... There's nothing much else in the news. I've just kind of rambled for 10 minutes about Lennon Miller, about that situation. Connell saying that Luke McCowan was in the same position as Lennon Miller. We signed him on a deadline day and he's proven to be worth the money. We spend Lennon Miller with the exact same thing. Exactly. Listen, you've got McCowan in now. You get Lennon Miller in. You've obviously got Forrest, who I think still got another year or two in him when he signs a new contract. You've got Callum McGregor. That's 4 Scottish players who are good enough straight away. You've obviously then got to look at the club train situation and make sure you've got 4 of them. That's going to be a complicated scenario over the next few years. Hopefully the club can provide us more players to be excited about, to talk about, that come through our own developmental system. But that's a conversation for another day. For me, it's got to be Lennon Miller who's coming into the club. And I don't see, Expelligov saying outrageous if Celtic continue to struggle to bring through 4 club-trained players, sack the academy coaches and Chris McCart. I've said this before, Smeldegov, and I've said this phrase already today. I agree with this, what Jonathan says, a lot more positives to signing Miller than negatives. Listen, if we spend £5 million on him and it doesn't work out, big whoop. But I'd rather take that £5 million gamble on potentially Scotland's next big player. I would rather take it. If it's a waste of $5 million, it's a waste of $5 million. We'll recoup that when we qualify for the Champions League year after year after year. I think it's a gamble we should be taking. To come back to this point from Smell the Glove, I've said this a million times, and I really want to kind of drill in again. I will die on this hill as well. I don't think that this is a Celtic problem. I think this is a Scotland problem. Scotland aren't bringing through enough good young players. I don't think it's necessarily what's happening at Celtic that makes that the case. I mean, you look at the Scottish national team, there is plenty of people that have come through Celtic there, including Ben Doak, who plays tonight, including Andrew Robertson, who plays, including the guys who are at Celtic. Callum McGregor's retired now. I think it's a Scotland problem. Because when you go through the Scottish national team, the squad that gets the best 25-man squad that Scotland can pick, how many of them are good enough to play for Celtic? John McGinn, Andrew Robertson, Kieran Tierney. 2 of them were at Celtic, in Tierney and Robertson. You've got to be honest with yourself. It's a Scotland problem. There is not many Scottish players who are good enough to play for the club. It's as simple as that. So I do share what you're saying, Smeldegov. Absolutely, I share I think some of what you're saying, the sentiment of what you're saying, some of it is true. 100%. But it's a Scotland problem. We aren't developing enough good players as a nation. It's not just what's happening at Celtic. I mean, people might go, well, look at Lennon Miller, who's come through the Motherwell system. Okay, right, I take that on board. But when was the last time Motherwell developed a player this good? It's not exactly like they're doing it every year. People might go back to James McCarthy and James McArthur coming through the Hamilton setup. How many years ago was that? And this is the thing as well. Mark, once again, I agree with what you're saying to an extent, but a lot of these Scottish players are playing in leagues that are better than the Scottish Premiership, and they're still not good enough to play for Celtic. You go through the Scottish national team, you look at the guys who've been in the Premier League, your Grant Hanleys, for example. Would I take Grant Hanley at Celtic? Absolutely not. And he's playing in the Championship. The Championship is a better standard than what the Scottish Premiership is. And I wouldn't take any of those players at the Championship at Celtic. No way. So I get what you're saying. A lot of players that might not get the chance to play for a Celtic or whatnot, but there's a reason Ryan Porteous is at Watford and not at Celtic, because he's not good enough to play for Celtic. There's a reason why Grant Hanley is, I don't even know if he's still at Norwich, is at Norwich and not at Celtic, because he's not good enough to play for Celtic. Christ, there's a reason why Scotland are relying on so many players to change their nationality to play for the national team, because we're not producing producing good enough players. It's a Scotland problem. It's not a Celtic problem. It's a Scotland problem. Che Adams, Angus Gunn, they've tried for Harvey Barnes. All these players, Scott McTominay, born in England, English players who are playing for Scotland because the country aren't producing good enough players. It is a problem that us as a country need to fix, not Celtic as a football club. And I will die on that hill. Thank you. Massive shout out to Alistair. Thank you for becoming a member. It is much appreciated. And I look forward to seeing you in some of the members' exclusive contents. Anyway, should we get into the Q&A session of the show? Because I don't want to go off without getting your questions and all the rest of it. So yeah, well, we'll get there. A lot of praise for Arne Engels last night in Belgium, despite them being rotten all round. I think the Belgian media seemed to be saying that Arne Engels was one of the brighter sparks of the Belgian national team last night. So, yeah. Anyway, that's that. Let's move on. Let's get your questions answered. It doesn't need to be just about Lennon Miller or the state of the Scottish national team or youth players, whatever. It can be about anything. So I want to get to that. Lots of teams blame Celtic's budgets, but they are the same clubs that cut our allocations to make less. Yeah, I agree, Jordan. Don't get Stevie down the stairs started. He'll give you a right good rant in that. He works out the maths every single away game, figuring out how many fucking seats they've missed out money on. Yeah, exactly, Jack. Celtic need to be expected to win every game domestically. Not enough room to take risks with youth players. And that's part of the problem. You know, we have players in our youth academy who just can't get chances, but ultimately, it's just not good enough. Hence the reason. So, why do you think so many of our youth, and I mean this with all due respect to the young lads at Celtic who've come through, not just the ones who are currently there, I mean all the ones that have come through in the last decade, why do you think a lot of them end up at teams like Dunfermline and Airdrie and, you know, even lesser down in that and down in the lower leagues in England? Because they're not good enough. It's not to do with the chances they might be or might not get. They're just not good enough. And you can see that with some. Some look like they've got potential, absolutely, and some have. But yeah, just different reasons and different things. Where in the centre midfield area would you fit in Lennon Miller? I think that's a problem to cover in a couple. I think if we sign him, honestly, he gets loaned out for 18 months. And I think it's the smart thing to do, Mazhar. So yeah, I think that's a problem in 18 months' time. But I think he could be the natural nice replacement and for like where maybe Engels would end up leaving if he goes for big money. I don't know. People talk about being McGregor's replacement. McGregor's a lot deeper now. I think Miller has to be a bit more advanced than that by the way that he's been playing at Motherwell recently. So yeah, we just need to wait and see. I've had to scroll down the chat, so I've lost a couple of the questions that I originally seen, which is annoying. Let's see. Is the red cap for Trump? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No chance. I can confirm that. Thanks very much. Do you think that Kasper Schmeichel will extend his contract? Yes, I do. I think he will. I have a good feeling he will. I am doing a lot of dying on hills. Good man. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. The Celtic Forever podcast. When you're joining Blue Sky, so much better than X. I don't know. I'll see how many people jump over, and then I'll make the decision. I'm not really huge on the social media front nowadays, anyway. To be honest, I really should be because it's part of my job. But you know, Ralston, a Celtic sub, starts for Scotland all the time, and that speaks volumes about the quality of our national team. Because Ralston, I think most Scotland fans will tell you, shouldn't be there. And the only reason he's starting all the time is because all our right backs are fucking injured. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in there. How long are the FM streams? I want to get the membership, but no money right now. The last one was 4 hours. We got a bit carried away. Tonight it'll probably be an hour or two. But the last one was 4 hours. Streaming, baby. I feel like Miller would be good for Hatate's role. Great linking up play. Yeah, could be. I think, you know, he's so early on in his career that we don't quite know exactly how he's going to end up yet. You know, Lennon Miller will be a very different player in 4 or 5 years' time from what he is right now. You know, it's going to be a while to know. He's nowhere near his prime or anything like that. Like, this is an investment, and that's why I think Celtic should invest, because there's so much to unlock about his game. Let's see. Well, will Scotland win tonight? No. I hope they do, obviously, but I don't think they will. I don't think we're good enough at the minute. I think a lot of the squad is obviously out injured or pulling out squads or whatnot. I just think we're in a good place, and we've not exactly running on high momentum, are we? Miller Kun, I'm taking Kun, so am I. Given we buy Miller in January, who would you like to loan him to? Definitely Motherwell. Number one, you don't want to help Aberdeen be any better. But number two, I think that I don't think you should disrupt a young lad's rhythm and momentum by sending him elsewhere mid-season. He's playing really well at Motherwell. Let him finish his season there. Let him go through that and stick with that team and stick with that system and play the way that he's playing. Don't send him elsewhere halfway through a season. I would definitely say Motherwell. I love that. Thank you, Connor. Come on. 256 live viewers here on a Friday night. And we've only got 39 likes. Come on. Go down below. Hit that like button. It would be much appreciated. So people have asked me this 100 times before. So basically, when you go live, you get this option. So it says, do you want ads during your stream? And of course, to make my living, I need to say yes. So I say yes, and then you get an option. You get low frequency, balanced frequency, or high frequency. I set it on balanced. This is not a Ryan Womanate problem, it's a YouTube problem. Trust me, I try and watch some of my favourite YouTubers stream, and I get fucking streams every 5 minutes. It's especially bad if you're watching a TV. So if you're watching a TV, I'd maybe recommend moving to like a laptop or a tablet or something. But I can't do much about it, sorry. How far does he's got at Champions League? Depends on the draw. I would love us to get to the last 16 though. But it depends on the draw. Bring him in to loan him out. He won't get minutes surely. Yeah, of course. I'd loan him out 100%. I hope Clark gets sacked. Well, if he's not been sacked by now, he'll be here by, unless we don't. The only way he goes is if we don't qualify for the World Cup, and then he'll go. That's it. And I think Scotland have basically told us that. The SFA have basically told us that. Miller to be the long-term replacement for Cal McGregor. I agree with this in respect to the personality of the player and the kind of heart of the midfield sort of part of it. But I think they're two very different players, especially now. Callum McGregor, 5, 6, 7 years ago, yes, 100%. I think they would have been a like-for-like replacement. But I think that people are now in a situation where you've got to basically admit that McGregor's a much more defensive-minded player nowadays. So I don't think it's a like-for-like replacement in terms of style of player, but to be the beating heart of the midfield and to potentially be Celtic captain one day, 100%. 100%. Scotland on YouTube again because no TV channel wants Clark football. Yeah. I know. Why would they? Clark football. Yay. Yes. If I set it to low, I sadly wouldn't make enough money off a stream. I barely make money off streams as it is. Like, I don't make anywhere near the amount of money off a stream than I do off of a video. But obviously when people donate, that kind of brings it up and beyond. So, yeah, I can't set it to low, sadly, because I have bills to pay and a life to live. Did you see the video of Scott Brown handing Grace a sign? Yes, it was a class act. Great, I love Scott Brown, and it was a nice clip. I only seen it just before I came live. Actually, I was just kind of sitting scrolling Twitter before I came on. No adverts for me. Is it because I'm a member? Yeah, I think it is. I think that is genuinely why. I think that's the reason. Who's on my Celtic Mount Rushmore? We're keeping that for a Thunder Club episode. We'll be back with the Thunder Club next week. Thank you, Donny Tiny Hands. There you go. Paul's got the right. There you go. Business expense. Can you do that? I need to start doing it. I need to get YouTube fucking premium and do that, my business expenses are so, like, I put nothing in it. I get people tell me, by the way, business expense that. And I'm like, I forget. And then my business expense is like petrol and that's it. Saying that, it's not like, I've got all my equipment. I've not bought equipment in ages. I want to get new lights, though. That's the next step. I want to get new lights. So, do you like beavers? No, again. Do you think we still have to get a good few positions to get better starters, backups? Yeah. The team's always constantly in a position where you can improve it. In January, I think you're going to do a little. You're not going to do a lot of work. I think it'll be minor. It's not going to be a full-on cosmetic makeover of positions and stuff like that. But I think you'll see a couple of players maybe move in and out. Ryan, give us a quick fire list of 5 players you'd chop from the Celtic squad right now to shave the wage bill down a bit. Okay, that's a good question. So when January basically rolls round, to 5 players that I'd chop off, wow. I don't know if there is 5. Stephen Welsh and... See, this is the thing, right? I'm going to say... I want to start off with Welsh and Ralston, but then obviously you've got to think about European squad registration. So are we just forgetting that? Are we just hypothetically in a situation where none of that exists? Because if we're doing that, if we're like, forget European squad registration and stuff like that, if I had to pick 5 to just get rid of, it'd be Anthony Ralston, Stephen Welsh, Lewis Palmer, God almighty. And honestly, I'm not really like all in and getting rid of anybody else beyond that, I think, in the first team. I mean, you could. I'm not even going to say Scott Bain because he's a third choice keeper. And why would I? Yang is. I was going to say Yang McKenzie, and then I thought I would get bullied for saying it. If I had to do 5, if I had to, I'd put Yang in. So that would be me on 4, and Taylor, I suppose. That would be my 5. Oh, tell you. Well, yeah, I'm forgetting players that are, out on. Navrovsky, of course. That's a good 5. If you're right, okay, I'm going to redo mine, actually, because I'm forgetting about players away out on loan. If we're counting players who are away out on loan, and I'm going Ralston and Welsh, Bernabei, Palmer, and Navrovsky. That's the 5. That's the 5 I'd go for. People saying Home. I really want us to loan out Home. I still think there's something in there that we're not quite getting out of him, and it's because he's just not getting minutes. I don't know. Maybe that's just blind faith. Maybe I don't care realistically. But that would be the 5. There are a lot of lists coming through. That's actually been a very interactive question. A lot of people, Kwon on some people's lists, Home on a few people's lists actually. So yeah, that's an interesting one. That is an interesting one. Right, let's go back. What minute are we on? Right, we've got a few more minutes before I need to cut off and get myself ready for my 8 o'clock stream, my FM stream. Calmac Celtic manager when he retires? Who knows? Maybe. God, we've not even got to Brown yet. Never mind McGregor. Although, did Brown just murder his chances of becoming Celtic manager the other night, losing to fucking Black Rooster Man and Cy Ferry? I don't know. Maybe. Let's see. If an offer came in, what is McGregor's price? Not very high. Not now. Not at this age. A few million? 2-3 million? Maybe. McGregor's never going to leave Celtic. He's got to retire here. Simple as that. Jinky or Larson. I never got to watch any of them play, but I'd go Jimmy Johnson every day of the week. My dad was lucky enough to grow up watching Jimmy Johnson, and his stories are enough to tell me that he is the greatest Celtic player of all time. And through my own archive dives and research, I would come to the conclusion that Jimmy Johnson will never be topped. Jimmy Johnson will be the best Celtic player of all time when I die, and when my children die, and when their children die. And he deserves that respect, I think. Yes, it is. Mount Rushmore's 4 people. So, yeah, our Celtic Mount Rushmore will be 4 people. So get thinking, Thunder Club members. I want to hear all yours when we get to that episode. Who do you think our next keeper will be when Casper goes? I still think that we might look at Peter Vindal Jensen in the next couple of years, but who maybe his name will just go into the past. Well, Yami Sinsalo is, of course, at the club as well, so... when the new Barrowfield is built, do you think the first team will use it, or do you think they'll? I believe the plan is, Paul, that the first team will still use Lennoxtown. I think the new Barrowfield is exclusively for the women and the youth team. I don't think they'll definitely have the first team down there for like a couple of open sessions or something to get the buzz of the place opening and that, but they'll still stick at Lennoxtown, as far as I'm aware, anyway. Did we ever end up selling that Sheffield Wednesday ladder? He says, no, he's gone. Paul, I'm glad that you brought this up. So he went to Morecambe, I think, Liam Shaw. And I completely forgot that he went, even though I made a video on it during the summer. He's just a forgettable guy. I'm sorry, Liam. But yeah, he went to Morecambe, and we only brought it up in the podcast like last week or whatever. And I was like, oh yes, of course. I forgot completely that he went away. So Paul, we were sharing the same state of mind, wondering if he was still here over the last couple of weeks. I wrote Quanaf after his comments when he first joined the Bilbao game, just sealed it. How is it? I feel like his, remember he went to St Mirren, started doing really well and it tailed off. Now he went to Hibs and apparently started well, and I feel like it's tailed off again. The Yang slander needs to calm down. He's not the finished product, but generally speaking, I think he's been half decent and has a look of something about him. Well, I hope he continues to prove it on after the Leipzig game. But, we need consistency. That's what we need. Yeah, of course, Brendan's staying for life. That's my next Celtic manager, Brendan Rodgers. I want Brendan Rodgers to be manager of Celtic until he's 75 years old. End of discussion. I want to be like Alex Ferguson. I want him to be standing on the pitch when I'm fucking 45, saying, your job now is to stand by your new manager. And then we wheel 100-year-old David Moyes onto the fucking sidelines and he gets sacked 7 months later. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for. Liam Shaw deserved more. Did he? Did he now? Okay, this has been brought up a couple of times. This got brought up in one of the members-only streams. I don't think anybody can necessarily prove that the Green Brigade don't genuinely support the women's team. That's people choosing to believe that for themselves. If you choose to believe that the Green Brigade are only going to these women's games to make a point for the Celtic end, that's your own decision. I can't force any other belief on you. You make your mind up at that point. But on the same side of it, you can genuinely believe that they do care about the women's team and they're using every opportunity they can get, which they should. I've not got a problem with it. I doubt the women have a problem. And this is what I'll say. This reminds me a lot of what 2024 culture is, when people choose to be offended about things. I'm not a right-wing nutter by any stretch. I'm not going to come down on you with a kill the wokey type rant here. But if you choose to be offended by it, I don't know why. It's like choosing to be offended about things that shouldn't offend you. It's good. The women probably love it. The women's team are probably buzzing that they're there. If they're buzzing about it, I'm buzzing about it. If it doesn't offend the women's team, if it doesn't offend the women's coaching staff, if it doesn't offend Celtic, then, you know, it doesn't offend me. So, that's what I'd say. I have, actually. I've been at a couple now. I get offered press for all of them, but something I just can't make it. I can't dedicate my whole life to going to Celtic games, left, right and centre for the youth team, women's team and the first team. Yeah. And that he is. Aye. That's exactly it, Libbo. If the women's team love it and they get people to the game, if it helps bring up the numbers, what's so bad about it? What's so bad about it? Anyway, that wraps it up for me tonight. Well, for this stream, I'll be back at 8 o'clock for all channel members. And talking about channel members, a big shout out to Callum and Alistair who became members throughout this stream. And thank you to Jordan for his donation as well. It is much appreciated. I'll be streaming some Football Manager at 8 o'clock tonight for a couple of hours. So I'll see some of you there who can make it. If you can't make it, if you're not a channel member, well, I'll be back on Sunday, hopefully with a video. Unless something huge happens tomorrow out of the blue, then I might be here tomorrow. But planning on Sunday being back, and then we'll be back with another one of the public live streams as well on Monday night probably, depending once again on what happens. So thank you for tuning in tonight, ladies and gents. I really do appreciate your company on a Friday evening like this. If you're going to watch the Scotland game, then enjoy that. Come on, Scotland, get a result for once, for fuck's sake. Anyway, thank you, cheerio,